Greeting viewers, my name is Bonginkosi Zondi and welcome to another segment of FMS Reaction to Topical Issues. So today I'll be joined by Dr. Bonginkosi Zondi, who is the head of MBA program at DUT Business School. So today we'll be unpacking about the recent conflicts that was happening between Iran and Israel, and also looking at fuel levy in South Africa, as we have seen that Minister Enoch Godongwana announced the new fuel hike last month. Dr. Zondi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Skombozo. And how are you?
I'm also good.
Good.
So let's get down into it. In the past few weeks, we have seen the recent nuclear conflicts between Iran and Israel, and also there was a ceasefire decision announced by President Donald Trump. So as these two countries, they are one of the biggest exporters of crude oil in the Middle East. So can you please maybe unpack for us, is there any impact that we can see in South Africa caused by this nuclear conflicts in the Middle East?
Well, thanks for the questions, Skombozo. First, let me indicate that I am not an energy expert, but I will attempt to answer your question. Well, the conflict in the Middle East has some effect on South Africa. I can even argue that it has a negative effect on our economy as a developing country. Around 2010, 2012, we as South Africa imported huge quantities of oil, crude oil, from Iran. But due to the pressure, both from Western countries and more importantly from the United States, we have had to cut down on our imports of Iranian oil. We now don't import anything from Iran in as far as crude oil is concerned. We are importing most of our oil from Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Angola, and the United States. But as far as refined oil is concerned, we import it from countries like India. Now, looking at the conflict, one could argue that there shouldn't be a negative impact on South Africa, considering that we are not buying crude oil from Iran. To the contrary, there is a negative impact because, as you know, Iran is closer to Saudi Arabia, from which we still buy crude oil. But more importantly, the Hormuz Strait, which is a part of the sea where most transportation of crude oil from the Middle East is done, could be impacted by the war between Israel and Iran. Another reason for the possible negative impact on us as South Africa is that countries are now interconnected. And that means what is happening to Iran, even though we are no longer trading with them directly in as far as crude oil is concerned, can affect the exchange rate, thus impacting on the price we pay to Saudi Arabia, for example. Therefore, to a certain extent, we are impacted upon by the conflict in the Middle East. I'm happy that there is a ceasefire, and I don't see the ceasefire failing because Iran would like to rebuild their country as soon as possible. And for them to be able to do so, they need to be able to export their crude oil.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe just to sneak in this question, because the conflict itself is not about oil, but it's about the nuclear.
Yes.
So Iran have been bold enough to say that, well, the nuclear that they are trying to build is for energy purposes and is not a nuclear weapon to try and attack other countries. And at the time, I remember in South Africa, there was a point where President Jacob Zuma spoke about investing in nuclear energy. So maybe just to sneak in this question to say, is it worthwhile to invest in nuclear energy? Because we've seen countries that are trying to do it, they are being attacked by Israel, and also United States have a hand in that. So is it worth to invest in such energy when we see other countries that are trying to do it, the implication that is happening from them?
Well, my answer to your question would be a big yes. Unfortunately, the superpowers like the United States, France, and others, they feel threatened that nuclear energy could end up being used for nuclear weapons as opposed to being used for, domestic purposes. So that is the concern or the concerns of the big boys, your US and them. However, if that concern were to be put aside, I would argue that nuclear energy is the way to go. We have seen in countries that use nuclear energy, sustained provision of electricity. It's cleaner and even more sustainable.
Maybe the last question for the interest of time. Last month we've seen the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana announce the fuel levy, and there was, I think, 15 cents per liter for diesel, and also 16 cents per liter for petrol. So many drivers have been complaining that, well, South Africa is selling a lot of its fuel to neighboring countries, but those countries are selling it at a cheaper price than us. So can you please maybe unpack for us the fuel tax structure in South Africa, and why is South Africa fuel so expensive if compared to neighboring countries that we are selling to?
Yeah. Well, I think it's because the price we pay at the pumps includes the levy, which is broken down into different levies. For example, the road accident fund levy, and also a levy that supplements the value-added tax, and the levy that also supplements excise duties and so forth. So those levies do not exist in our neighboring countries. If you get injured in a car accident, for example, the road accident fund could pay out. That doesn't happen in Swaziland. It doesn't happen in any of the neighboring countries, as an example. So the levy is used for such purposes.
Well, Dr. Zondi, thank you very much for your time and for the insights that you have given us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, viewers, this is FMS Reaction to Topical Issues, where we have a sit-down with the head of MBA at the DUT Business School. Let's meet again next time in the next episode. I thank you.